On the eastern edge of Atlanta, past the strip malls and the gas stations and the ordinary streets named after something people have forgotten, there is a mansion that nobody lives in. 40 rooms, a grand ballroom with the paint peeling off the walls, a crumbling glass greenhouse, and out back, if you know where to look, a row of empty concrete cages where the elephants used to stand. Real elephants. 4 of them, once, with names. The man who built this place was one of the richest heirs in America, and his father had owned something that almost no one in the history of the world has ever owned the way he owned it. Not a slice of it, not a controlling interest, the whole thing. Every share. The most famous brand on planet Earth. A red and white name you have seen 10,000 times without ever once stopping to think about it. That brand was Coca-Cola, and this family owned all of it. Then one afternoon in the summer of 1919, with a stroke of a pen the founder himself did not sign and was not even asked about, they let it go. All of it. For a price that felt enormous at the time and looks, from where we sit today, like one of the worst trades ever made by an American family. Today, that founder's name is on a public park. It is on a school of theology. It is on the airport you fly into when you land in Atlanta. His name is stamped on nearly everything in that city, except the one thing that made his family rich in the first place. So ask yourself something. How does a family that owned the most valuable brand in the world end up with a moldering palace and a name on street signs? The answer is not a stock market crash. It is not a scandal, a swindle, or a crime. It is something much quieter than any of that. And the quiet ones almost never announce themselves until they have already happened. To understand how the Candlers lost Coca-Cola, you first have to understand that they never really made it the way you think they did. Coca-Cola was not invented by a Candler. It was invented in 1886 by a wounded Confederate veteran and morphine-addicted pharmacist named John Pemberton, who was mixing up patent medicines in Atlanta and looking for a tonic to sell at soda fountains. Pemberton had the formula. What Pemberton did not have was the faintest idea what he was holding. He was sick, he was broke, and over the next couple of years he sold off pieces of his little company to various investors just to keep the lights on. And that is where Asa Griggs Candler walks into the story. A druggist, the son of a Villa Rica merchant, a devout Methodist with a talent for arithmetic and an almost religious belief in hard work. Candler did not invent Coca-Cola. What he did was quietly buy up every scattered piece of it from Pemberton and from everyone Pemberton had sold to, until the whole thing was his. The price he paid for full control of the formula is usually put at around $2,300. Sit with that number for a moment. $2,300. In today's money, a used car. That is what the recipe for Coca-Cola cost the man who turned it into an empire. By 1892, he had incorporated the Coca-Cola Company, capitalized on paper at $100,000. And here is the part that matters, because it is the whole reason the Candlers ever had anything to lose. Asa Candler was not a great inventor, he was a great salesman. He understood something his competitors did not. He understood that the drink itself was almost beside the point. What he was really building was a habit, and a habit has to be everywhere. So Candler flooded the country with the name. He put it on calendars, on serving trays, on painted signs bolted to the sides of barns from Georgia to the Dakotas. He printed coupons for a free glass of Coca-Cola and mailed them out by the thousands, so that a customer would walk into a drugstore, demand the drink, and the druggist would have no choice but to stock the syrup. He was manufacturing demand out of thin air before anyone had a proper word for it. This is the engine. Remember that word because we are going to come back to it. The engine of the Coca-Cola fortune was never the sugar or the water or the secret 7-part flavoring. The engine was the syrup business and the brand wrapped around it. Candler sold concentrated syrup to soda fountains. They mixed it with fizzy water, and the money came back to Atlanta in a steady, beautiful, endless stream. By the mid-1890s, the drink was sold in every state in the country. Asa Candler was becoming one of the richest men in the American South, and at the height of it, he built himself a monument. In 1906, he raised the Candler Building on Peachtree Street, 17 stories of white marble and carved stone, the tallest thing in Atlanta at a time when most of the city topped out at 5 floors. He put his bank in it. He put the company in it. He put his name on it in stone, where it still sits today. A man does that when he believes the thing he has built will outlast him. He was right about the building. It is still standing. He was wrong about almost everything else, because here is where the first crack appears. And it is such a small crack on such an ordinary day that nobody in the room understood what had just happened. In 1899, 2 lawyers from Chattanooga named Benjamin Thomas and Joseph Whitehead came to Atlanta with what Candler thought was a foolish idea. They wanted to put Coca-Cola in bottles. Candler waved it off. To him, Coca-Cola was a fountain drink. It had always been a fountain drink, and as far as he was concerned, it always would be. He worried the glass would change the taste. He worried inconsistent bottles would embarrass the brand. He simply did not believe people wanted to carry a soft drink home in their hands. So he gave the bottling rights away. Not sold. Gave. The contract handed Thomas and Whitehead the exclusive right to bottle Coca-Cola across nearly the entire United States in perpetuity, forever, for the grand sum of $1. And here is the detail that tells you everything about how little Candler thought of it. He never even bothered to collect the dollar. Think about that for a second. The man who chased down every last coupon, who understood distribution better than anyone alive, looked at the future of his own product and handed half of it away for a coin he didn't pick up. Thomas and Whitehead brought in a third partner, a man named John Lupton, and they built the bottling system that turned Coca-Cola from a fountain novelty into something you could buy on a farm, in a lumber camp, at a baseball game, anywhere in America. Within 20 years, there were more than 1,000 bottling plants. Those men and the families who bought franchises from them became fabulously, generationally wealthy. On the dollar, Asa Candler couldn't be bothered to collect. That is the first lesson hiding in this story, and it is worth saying plainly. Candler gave away half the engine because he was certain he already understood the whole future. Hold that thought, because it is a family trait, and it is about to cost them everything. For now, set the bottling contract aside, because as painful as it was, it is not what killed the Candler fortune. The thing that actually killed it was gentler, and it looked at the time like an act of love. By 1916, Asa Candler was in his mid-60s. His wife Lucy was the center of his world. He had made more money than his farm boy imagination had ever reached for, and he was tired of the daily grind of running a company. So he did 2 things that year that seemed on their own entirely reasonable. First, he ran for mayor of Atlanta, and he won. He stepped out of the boardroom and into City Hall to balance the city's budget and rebuild after a great fire tore through 1,500 homes. Coca-Cola was no longer his daily concern. And second, on Christmas Day of 1917, he gave the company away. Not to strangers, to his children. He signed over nearly all of his Coca-Cola stock, all but about 1% of it, and divided it among his 5 kids. His eldest son Howard took the reins. The others took their shares and their seats. It was, in Asa's mind, the natural order of things. You build it, and then you hand it to your blood. Here is a myth worth clearing up right now, because you will hear it repeated everywhere, even in places that should know better. People say that Asa Candler sold Coca-Cola. He did not. Asa Candler never sold Coca-Cola. He gave it to his children. It was the children who sold it, and they did it without him. This is the mechanism. This is the quiet thing. Watch how it works, because it has erased more family fortunes than every crash in history combined. Asa Candler split the single most valuable asset in the American South into 5 pieces and handed those pieces to 5 different people with 5 different lives, 5 different appetites, and 5 different definitions of enough. He gave them the stock. He did not give them a reason to hold it. There was no trust binding it together, no family agreement, no structure that said this stays whole, this stays in the family. This does not get sold on a good day for a nice check. He handed them a diamond and no instructions except the unspoken assumption that, of course, they would keep it. They did not keep it. By early 1919, the ground was shifting. In February of that year, Lucy Candler died, and Asa was gutted, grieving, and further away from the business than ever. Meanwhile, his sons were being circled by one of the shrewdest financiers in the South, an Atlanta banker named Ernest Woodruff, who ran the Trust Company of Georgia, and who could smell an opportunity the way a shark smells blood in the water. Woodruff wanted Coca-Cola, and the Candler children, sitting on shares they had done nothing to earn, were listening. In August of 1919, they sold. Woodruff assembled a syndicate backed by 3 banks, 2 in New York and his own in Atlanta, and they bought the Coca-Cola Company for $25 million. It was the largest financial transaction the American South had ever seen. $15 million in cash, the rest in preferred stock. For the Candler children, it was an unimaginable payday. They were young, they were suddenly liquid, and they had just done what looked like the smartest deal of their lives. And their father found out after it was done. When they told Asa Candler that the company he had built from a $2,300 formula was gone, sold behind his back while he grieved his wife, he did not rage. He said something quieter and sadder than any tantrum. He said that when he gave them the business, it became theirs to do with as they pleased. They had sold out a big share for a fancy price. He would not have done it. But they did, and he admitted, with the bitter fairness of a man watching his life's work walk out the door, that from a purely business standpoint, they had driven a keen bargain. He was right that it was a keen bargain. He was also watching the beginning of the end of his family's place at the center of American wealth, and some part of him surely knew it. So the Candlers had $25 million. And now we get to the second way a fortune dies. Not by splitting, by spending. Take Asa Candler Jr., his father's namesake, his second son, known to everyone as Buddy. When Buddy got his share of the family money, he did not reinvest it, protect it, or quietly compound it into something that would outlive him. He spent it in the grandest and most spectacular way a man can spend money. In 1922, Buddy built Briarcliff, that mansion on the edge of Atlanta we started with, the one with the empty rooms and the peeling ballroom. 42 acres, servants' quarters, tennis courts, a golf course, greenhouses, 2 swimming pools, and a private zoo. He filled it with lions, a Bengal tiger, a black leopard, and 4 elephants he named, with a wink, Coca-Cola, refreshing and delicious. When one of his baboons escaped in 1935, it bit a neighbor and made off with $60 from her purse, and Buddy got sued for it. He bought yachts. He bought airplanes. He threw parties that Atlanta talked about for a generation, and his children lived just as loud as he did. His own descendants would later say he lived like a character out of The Great Gatsby. And if you know how that book ends, You already understand where this is going. Buddy's ventures were extravagant, and most of them failed. The zoo was eventually broken up. The animals went to what would become Zoo Atlanta, and the great mansion, the crown jewel of a Coca-Cola heir, slowly emptied out. After Buddy died, Briarcliff was sold off and turned into a state mental health facility, and then it was shut down, and then it was simply left to rot. Today, it belongs to Emory University, standing there on the outskirts of the city, a 40-room monument to money that arrived all at once and left just as fast. That is splitting, and that is spending. But there is a third failure underneath both of them, and it is the one that turns a sad story into a tragic one. It is the failure to build any structure at all to hold the wealth together. And the cruelest way to see that failure is to look at the people who bought Coca-Cola and did the exact opposite. Because here is what people get wrong about the 1919 sale. They picture Ernest Woodruff and his group as fat cats who lucked into a golden goose. The truth is stranger, and it is the whole point of this story. When Woodruff's syndicate bought the company, they took on debt to do it. And Ernest's own son, Robert Woodruff, a young man selling trucks up in Cleveland at the time, borrowed money out of his own pocket to buy Coca-Cola stock because, unlike the Candler children, he believed the thing had a future worth betting his own name on. Then the future almost proved him wrong. In the years right after the sale, sugar prices went haywire. The stock cratered from $40 a share down to $18. And the company the Candlers had sold looked, in the words of one of its own lawyers, like a frail little boat tossed on a storm. This is the moment the Candlers dodged, and it is the moment they should thank their stars for. If the story ended there, cashing out in 1919 would look like genius. It did not end there. In 1923, the board turned to 33-year-old Robert Woodruff and asked him to run it. He took a $50,000 pay cut to do it. And over the next 60 years, this is the part that should make a Candler weep. Robert Woodruff took the exact same engine Asa built, the syrup, the brand, the machine, and he did not sell it, split it, or spend it. He held it. He fed it. He drove Coca-Cola into every country on earth, put it in the hands of American soldiers in the Second World War, and turned a struggling Atlanta soft drink company into one of the most valuable brands humanity has ever produced. And the Woodruffs held their stock the whole way up. Now let me give you the number that turns this from a story into a wound. The Candler children sold for $25 million in 1919. A single share of Coca-Cola bought that year at $40, with the dividends reinvested along the way, was worth close to $10 million all by itself just a few years ago. One share. And the Coca-Cola company today is worth more than $300 billion. The Candlers didn't sell a fortune. They sold the seed of a fortune so large the human mind can barely picture it. And they sold it because no one had built anything to stop them. And the Woodruffs? Robert Woodruff and his brother gave over $230 million to Emory University alone, including a single gift in 1979 that was the first 9-figure donation any American university had ever received. The Woodruff Foundation is still one of the most important charitable forces in Georgia. Their name is on the Arts Center, on the park downtown, on the Great Library. Robert Woodruff died in 1985 at 95, and they called him Mr. Anonymous because he gave away so much of it so quietly. So sit with the contrast because it is the entire lesson. 2 families, 1 brand. The Candlers were handed the machine and chose the cash. The Woodruffs borrowed for the machine and never let go. Same engine, opposite endings. Here is what people get wrong about losing a fortune. They think it takes a catastrophe. They picture the crash, the fraud, the villain, the fire. But the Candlers didn't lose Coca-Cola on a terrible day. They lost it on a wonderful one, at a record price, in the biggest deal the South had ever seen, surrounded by handshakes and congratulations. That is the terrifying part. The quiet mechanism does its work while everyone in the room is smiling. A fortune this size almost never dies from a single blow. It dies from splitting when you divide the one great asset into pieces small enough that no single heir feels the weight of the whole. It dies from spending when the cash feels infinite because it arrived all at once. And it dies, most of all, from the absence of structure, the missing trust, the missing agreement, the missing rule that says this stays whole, and this stays in the family. There is an old saying about American money, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. The grandfather builds it in his work clothes, the son wears the fine suit, and the grandson is back in his shirt sleeves. Asa Candler was the shirt sleeves, his children were the fine suits. And you have already seen the grandsons living like Gatsby in a house that is now a ruin. The Candlers kept the monuments and let go of the machine. They kept the name on the park, the building, the airport, the university. They kept everything that reminds Atlanta they once mattered. And they let go of the one thing, the only thing, that would have kept the name, meaning what it used to mean. So think back to where we started. That empty mansion on the edge of Atlanta, the peeling ballroom, the row of cages where the elephants used to stand. It is easy to look at Briarcliff and see a ghost story, but it is not really a story about a haunted house. It is a receipt. It is what $25 million looks like 100 years later when nobody built anything to hold it together. The elephants named Coca-Cola, refreshing and delicious, are long gone. And somewhere in a filing cabinet, in spirit at least, there is still a bottling contract with a single dollar written on it that Asa Candler never bothered to collect. A family that kept giving dollars away, one careless signature at a time, until the last and largest dollar of all walked out the door in the summer of 1919 and never came back. They owned the most famous brand on earth, and they traded it for a check, a palace, and a name on the airport. If this is the kind of story that gets under your skin, the quiet way great fortunes really disappear, then there is another family you need to know about. They built a mansion so enormous, so absurdly grand, that when the money finally ran out, the crown jewel of their empire sat one signature away from the wrecking ball, and nobody, not one buyer in America, wanted to take it. That story is next. If you like this video, YouTube also thinks you're going to like the one on your screen right now. Go ahead and give it a click. I think you'll be glad you did.